For the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love. Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work. Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. Who or what are you celebrating today? Well, we made it through the election. It wasn't what they predicted. You know, all these polls and everything that was telling us things were going a certain way, I started tuning them out. And when I went in to vote yesterday, I said, dear God, I'm doing this for the good of all concerned. Some of the people that I voted for, thank God, were elected. Some were not. I'm disappointed about that. But my hope is that everybody that was elected will rise to the occasion and do the right thing, whatever that may be for all of us. But today, we're going to be talking about the play that goes wrong. And we have two of the amazing cast members that will be joining us today. I was lucky enough to see this show a few months ago. And this was just as the COVID pandemic was about to get lifted. So I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of how a show such as the one that I do happens. I have a very dear friend and fan in London who reached out to me, Sarah Wolfson, if she happens to be watching today. And she said she saw this in London and thought it was one of the funniest plays that she had ever seen. And she said, I know some of the creators from Mischief Productions. I'm going to write to them and see if we could do a show with you. So she did. And they put me in touch with the publicist team here in New York. And I was invited to go and see the show. Well, the night that we went, there were a lot of students there. And when there are a lot of kids in the audience, it could go one of many ways. So I was a little nervous about the fact that, oh my God, there are all these kids. They were very loud, you know, going into the theater and everything. But I am telling you the hilarity of what was going on that stage and what was going on in the audience, because these kids were loving it. They were theater kids. And how, I mean, for some of them, it may have been their first experience in New York. It may have been their first experience at the theater. It may have been a myriad of things. But the fact of the matter was, as a group, we were there to celebrate this show. And so I am thrilled that you are all here today to help me celebrate one of the funniest shows that I have seen off-Broadway, on-Broadway, television, film, anywhere. And this cast is just amazing. But before I bring on our two cast members today, let's take a little sneak peek at the excitement of what this show is all about.
Welcome to the Cornley University Drama Society's presentation of The Murder at Havisham Manor!
Now, as short as that montage is, that's how fast the show seems. You sit down in your seats, and before you know it, it's over. Chris Lensley and ELLIE MacPHERSON, thank you both for being here today. I am so thrilled. I begin both of my shows. You can decide who will go first, but I always begin my shows by asking, who or what are you celebrating today?
This is going to sound really lame, but I'm celebrating the opportunity to celebrate our show because Ellie, look at your face. I love this show. If I wasn't in this show, I would be a huge fan of this show, and I would see it a lot. As a British person in the US, I'm all about things that connect me to home and that sort of thing. I watch a lot of soccer, for starters. That's something that kind of ties me to home. And a lot of British television, comedies, that sort of thing. And there is nothing to me so kind of quintessentially British humor as this show is right now. So to be honest, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to talk about this show, to kind of celebrate what we do and what people before us have done with this in the West End and all of that. So it sounds cheesy, but there it is.
There's nothing cheesy about it. And Ellie, I want to say this is your off-Broadway debut. So congratulations for that achievement.
Thank you.
And you also, you have a one-woman show
I do.
celebrating, is it The President's Wives?
No, well, I have a couple versions. I just took, I do a cabaret solo show about the presidents, and I took it to Edinburgh this past year, but I've also done different shows about their wives, the vice presidents. I'm working on one about Abe Lincoln right now, so.
Wow. So the timing is good on that show, especially.
Yeah.
So which out of the two of you, I know, like I said, Ellie, this is your debut with this show. Who's been in the longest?
Chris.
Yeah, I have. Not too much longer though, I don't think. Just a few months.
Yeah, you were original. You were original cast. I think I joined.
Yeah.
About 8 months into the run.
8 months in. Wow, it feels like you've been with the show forever.
I know.
I started in when we opened Off-Broadway in February 2019, and I've been with the show since then. I did leave for a little while to do the national tour, which was great. But I think Ellie joined just before I left as
That's
well.
right. Yeah.
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 So you both, and take us back there for a moment. March 12th, a couple of years ago, was when everything shut down. When you first started hearing about COVID, what did you think? I mean, because let's face it, in this business, none of us have ever experienced COVID, but it did have the power, and it did with some, to cripple and destroy shows. It didn't with yours, because you came back stronger than ever. Do either of you want to respond to that and what you think the staying power is with this show and why you were able to survive this tidal wave called COVID?
I think purely the comedy and just the laughter and people were so excited. Chris, do you remember like the first time people laughed in, like, we just hadn't heard a group of people laughing in the same space.
Yeah.
And even, with masks on, which is how we initially started back in, it was, the beauty of our show, I think, is that it really transcends any sort of boundaries of identity. Everybody thinks it's funny to fall, everybody, and I think
we laugh at people when we see them fall down.
Yeah, we do. But even more, I think we really like when people get back up, and I think that that's so much of what our show is. And it's just, there's just something that's just so appealing about laughter, especially after such dark times.
And the absurdity of, I mean, when you think that they've gone as far as they can go, and it's not just actors falling down, it's set pieces falling down, it's all these things. How familiar were both of you with the show prior to going into the show?
I wasn't at all. I had my experience with the show. I got the audition, and I watched a great clip on YouTube that the original Mischief company did for the Royal Variety performance in the UK. And I watched that. I remember I got the audition. It was over the holidays. I was with my dad in Liverpool, which is where I'm from. And I said, I got this audition. So we were just sat at the computer, and I went up on YouTube and watched that 10, 15-minute clip. We were laughing for the whole time through it, but also I was sitting there terrified and intimidated by everything that they were doing. I hadn't seen it on Broadway because I have a tendency to wait with British shows until I happen to be in London. I tend to prioritize the shows that are only on Broadway. So I hadn't seen it live. Still haven't, actually.
And Ellie?
I haven't, honestly. I saw it once, just before, when we were on a layover from tour. I saw it once, actually. That's not true. But yeah, that's the only time. I wish I'd seen it before. I wish I'd seen it blind without knowing exactly what was coming.
So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say that I had, because I was in graduate school at the time, and one of my best friends was the stage manager of the Broadway production. And he actually said, "Hey, come see the show. I think you'd really think it's funny. And also I think you'd really like the cast. I think they're really fun, and they're kind of your sense of humor." And so I went and saw the show when I was still in grad school, and like hung out with, the original cast after, and Maddie, and never, dreaming that maybe one day I would get to like be in the show, maybe. And then
Do you, because I believe in manifestation, do you believe in the back of your mind that you were thinking I'm going to be in the show at some point, or did that never cross your mind?
I worked, yeah, you know what? I think I did. I worked really hard to get in the show. I auditioned 3 times for this. I auditioned for like the first national, the original Off-Broadway, and then for the second national. And I finally got a call back in the second national. By that time, I was just so, I think I understood the material better, because like so much of what I was going for the laugh, and like you don't go for the laugh in this show, you actually just go for the truth.
Oh, you have to. Absolutely. I am very interested in process, and I want to talk with each of you about process and the journey to where we are today. And I'm going to start with you, Chris. You were not familiar with the show. Well, you had seen the Royal Variety presentation, but how did the audition come about for you?
Well, I was in the UK at the time, over the holidays. I was working a day job. I hadn't had too many opportunities to audition for theatre because I had a day job at the time. I've been doing a lot of commercials and a bit of TV and that sort of thing. But my agent sent it to me and was like, do you think this could be something you could do? And then when I saw that clip, yes, this is 100% something I can do. And when I say I went into it blind, I think what prepared me was growing up watching the same shows and comedies that had influenced the writers of this show, especially Fawlty Towers. I don't know if you've seen that. John Cleese in that as Basil Fawlty is a big, huge inspiration for me as Chris Bean. So I do think, even though I kind of went in without too much knowledge about the show itself, obviously I'd read it and read the audition sides. I think what really helped me was knowing where the writers were coming from a little bit, if that makes sense. I auditioned for the role of Jonathan, and booked the role of Jonathan, who I played up until I left for the national tour, where I switched to Chris Bean. Jonathan is the deceased, who is not great at being the deceased, to say the least. And I covered Chris. I understudied Chris. So that's been an interesting process as well. Finding the character almost half through someone else's eyes as well. Yeah, I don't know if I've gone too far on the question.
No. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And Ellie, with you, it's a little different. You said that you auditioned for it 3 times. So obviously this is something that you pursued. Did you reach out to your agent? How did you go about getting that, for those actors who are watching? How did you go about getting that first audition?
I asked my friend, who was the stage manager at the time, if he could, get me, just get me seen, and he did. So it's all about. It's not always about your agent. In fact, I don't have an agent. I still don't. So
I'm going to share an interesting story with both of you. Dixie Carter. You both know who Dixie Carter was. Do you know, Chris, who Designing Women? She plays Julia Sugarbaker on Designing Women. Google her, look her up.
Yeah.
But one of the holy grails for New York cabaret artists is the Carlisle. And I saw an interview with her years ago on the Dick Cavett show, and she was being interviewed, and he said, "You're one of the few people that I've had on this show that I didn't go through an agent or a manager." And she said she used to have a manager, and when she said that she wanted to perform at the Carlisle, his response was, "Why? That's just in a hotel." Not realizing the prestige of playing this. And she said she got rid of him. And she says, now I don't have an agent. I don't have a manager. I'm not knocking agents and managers, because I love agents and managers. I'm just saying in her case, and it's, you're proving that you don't necessarily need that to get these opportunities in the theater, which I think is wonderful. So how did you prepare for your audition, Ellie?
I also, the first audition, I did go and watch the show, actually, and because it was still on Broadway when I saw it, and that wasn't helpful because I was trying to do what the gal was doing on stage, and like that's not the point, right? The point is to like do you on stage, not somebody else. And it took some time for me to kind of get that and just be more comfortable in like what I was bringing, I think, to that. Yeah.
Is that why? I mean, you believe that that is why when you first auditioned, that you and what was it about your audition the third time that was the charm?
To be honest, I was also in callbacks for another gig, and so I didn't have the oh, if I don't book this, like nothing's going to, it's not gonna. I was actually much more relaxed. It was that kind of thing of like I could take it or leave it. Honestly, like this would be wonderful. I would love this, but this isn't gonna make or break my life, my career, any of that. And I was also in that third time. I was actually in callbacks for the tour. And so I thought if I book this, I'm going to be on the road for 6 months, and it just so happened that actually they ended up placing me Off-Broadway instead. But, maybe it's just that thing of not feeling as quite so pressured.
How many cities is the show currently playing in? Do you know? Because there are, I mean, I just put it on the screen. There is a tour going on, and it's playing in various cities around the country. And it's still in London as well.
Still in London, yeah. I think that right now it's just us 2 cities in terms of like under the Mischief worldwide. It may be being produced regionally in other places. I'm not sure.
So, Chris, with you, how did you prepare for your audition?
What Ellie said there really resonated with me, especially about the pressure. That I really get stressed out in auditions. To be honest, Ellie's like, yeah, I see that. No, I do. Like, for those same reasons. I'm like, I really want the gig. I want it almost too much, and then I go in there and I put too much pressure on myself, and I don't give my best work. With this one, I mean, the first audition, I had to move my flights from the UK. I landed the day before the audition, and the audition itself was early. I think it was the pre-screen. It was very early. I remember it vividly. I had prepared. I had a whole thing. I think the jet lag played its part because I wasn't so stressed out and I wasn't so worried. And I just came up with kind of a wacky idea. The character of Jonathan, which is the one I auditioned for and originally played, he was compared to James Bond, but not quite in the breakdown. He thinks he's James Bond, but he isn't. So I really took that to heart. Gave him like a little pistol, a suave thing. And the room was so warm when I walked in there, that between the preparation I'd done in a kind of fog and the room being so accommodating and warm, it all just felt like it came together. And there was actually a young man who left the audition room and was very upset. I could tell he was upset and he was stressed out with his performance. And somebody left the room who was one of the auditioners, to go and console him and put their arm around him and make sure he felt okay. And for some reason, that kind of calmed my nerves as well, knowing that somebody in the room before I even went in there was that nice and warm that they would come out and just, have a word with somebody. And that warmth went all the way through the audition process. I've never had an audition process quite like this one before. At the callbacks, which was a 2-day process, day one, all 3 writers were there, a lot of people behind the desk, but it began with everybody called back, 2 or 3 people called back for each role, all in the room together, all warming up together with the writers. They led it, running around the room like crazy people. And that just kind of dissipated all the nerves, took them away from me, and it became a process that was fun and enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Even going into smaller groups and then playing the role you were auditioning for in front of the other people who were auditioning for it. It just made it a very collaborative process. And I don't know, I always wonder if they do this because the show is such an ensemble piece. I wonder if they do this so that they can kind of see how people work with each other and see anyone who's maybe a little too precious to perform in front of other people auditioning for a role. I don't know. I'm reading into that, but it was a lot of fun. And I just enjoyed it throughout. They had me read for Chris Bean, who I ended up understudying and now play a lot in those as well. And I wasn't as prepared for that. I'd only prepared for Jonathan. And in a way, again, not being prepared kind of helped me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything could go wrong and possibly will.
Exactly.
Ellie, Chris mentioned earlier his influences of the British comedies and shows that he did. You have any particular image? I know that you had seen the show prior, so you already had that image. And once you were able to move away from that and find your own authentic self in the show, obviously it worked for you. But did you have an idea in the back of your mind of someone that you were emulating in terms of your audition when you were auditioning for the role?
Yeah, I will say I grew up also with a lot of British comedy. Weirdly, even though neither of my parents are British, my dad was really into Monty Python, so
Mhm.
I was kind of also versed in it. But you just reminded me that I watched Gosford Park.
Oh,
Um,
yes, yes.
I watched that movie like 3 times, I think, before I went into the audition because I thought, "Oh, well, that's what the Murder at Havisham Manor is wants to be. So what if you do it like it's Gosford Park, like it's the Robert Altman film, and it's just going wrong?" And I think actually that kind of that was what was helpful.
Chris, you mentioned the audition process, and you go into any audition, and you obviously are thinking of the individual self going into any piece. But this show is such an ensemble piece. And did you, and you really touched upon this, if you can elaborate a little more about the stress, how they stressed the ensemble aspect of what was needed from you in order for you to acclimate yourself into this company.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it with casting. I think they have been very careful about the type of person they've cast in the show. I think the audition process and the way they do that allows them to see personalities and match personalities as well. So I think naturally on day one of rehearsal, we have that great fun collaborative audition process that we were all in together, that we've all kind of experienced it as a group. Oh, it's you, brilliant. Oh, so good to see you, arms around each other, that kind of thing. So we have that already, but they've also picked people who are kind of predisposed to just being accommodating and lovely and nice to each other.
Excuse me for
um,
interrupting, but I want to
yeah.
ask you, and Ellie, I want the same thing from you. When you auditioned, are you auditioned uh, with other actors that are up for the show, or are they already part of the ensemble? They're just looking to see how you're interacting with each other. What is that exactly like?
My audition was with people that were just coming in as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I actually, the second day of callbacks, auditioned with one of the lady playing Sandra on Broadway at that time, as well. So we did have kind of a mix of auditioning with new people and experienced people as well, which was interesting.
And I'm sure that with a company like this, that actors come and go. I
Mhm.
mean, and obviously everybody brings their own uh, authentic self to the table. Um, what is the experience like for each of you? I mean, number one, going into a company that's already established, and number two, new people coming into a show with an established company, especially a show like this where timing is of the utmost importance.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, we actually were very lucky in that we stuck together for a very long time. It was the same people. Probably, yeah, it's not the norm, and I just think it's part of the beauty of people love doing the show so much, and we loved each other so much because of this ensemble. I think that was created in casting and this choice of people that probably more than any other long running show. I think we were together probably for 18 months, especially coming back from the pandemic. And it's only very recently. Yeah, sorry.
Were there any COVID casualties? And I mean, actors that actually did have to leave because of COVID, and if so, um, doing the show, uh, I mean, how many people double different roles, and what's your standby and understudy situation? Because I do want to give a huge shout out to standbys and swings. And I'm sure that they're very important in your company, majorly important in your company.
Mm.
Truly, I mean, yeah. Mischief are a fantastic company for that, because I was an understudy and I got elevated into the role that I covered, and I'm not the first person that's been the case for. They're really kind to understudies and swings, and really aware of how difficult that work is. We have in the building 2 male and 2 female understudies. Each of the male understudies, I think they know 4 and 5 roles each.
Mhm.
And the 2 female understudies know both female roles. We also have a pretty good bench now as well of people who have done the show on the national tours, on Broadway, people who have been in our show Off-Broadway and aren't in it anymore. And I think because of, again, that ensemble, we had that great audition process. We have essentially a 1-room dressing room that we're all in, cracking jokes to each other the whole time. Because of all of that, people are always willing to come back to this show. And people are hoping to get the opportunity to come back and do it again for a few weeks. So it's great. And we love, we have great WhatsApp groups. We love seeing these people come back and have, see our old friends again in the dressing room. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Ellie, and you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you asked about COVID. Like everybody, we had to deal with some things. Actually, last Christmas, remember, Chris? Last Christmas, we had 5 understudies on out of the cast of 8. We put 5 people on. The team's been so great. Also about, people just really stepping up and doing parts that they've never done before. And just showing up an hour before and being a new part. And, I think it's been, it's been really interesting. And, both Chris and I have been understudies. I still am, but, and I think it just gives you such a new appreciation also for the complexity of the work and how all the different parts work together. I didn't do my second cover for almost a year. It took a year for me to go do my second cover. And now that I've finally done her, I see more of the picture of the show than just as that one gal. So really great.
Chris, I want to talk about your training for a moment. Your training that you had prior to the show. What, in terms of your training, really prepared you to be able to go into this show?
Ooh. Well, I suppose my training started, I was in the National Youth Theatre of Great Britain for a number of years until I moved to the US. I did all sorts of shows all over the UK. And I think that was really helpful as well. This company is, sorry, my computer beeped for no reason there. The company, the original Mischief company, have kind of developed the show all over the country at the Edinburgh Fringe, touring in various productions and that sort of thing. So I do think that helped as well, and working with so many great British directors over those years. And then moving here, a lot of my training, as a lot of training does in the US and in New York in particular, kind of revolves around being in the moment and reacting to things as they happen, which is probably one of the most important elements of this show. Things are constantly happening to our cast, to the actors in this show. So that ability to just kind of roll with it and experience fresh every night, especially in a long run like this as well. But it's so crucial that all of these things that are about to happen, we don't telegraph it and we just kind of experience it as they come. So I think I'm fortunate to have that kind of mix of British training and American training as well. It really lends itself well. And I wonder as well, I'm dying to see the West End production. I might get to do that this December, but I'm wondering if there are differences between the American and the West End versions of the show. And if I'm, specifically kind of the training has...
Well, maybe we'll bring them
just
on
for this version, which is kind of an amalgam, perhaps.
And Ellie, same thing. Your training that prepared you for this show. It is such a physical show.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I trained as a dancer for almost 15 years, and I think I know, surprise, Chris, and I think that kind of physiological kind of understanding was really helpful. It was really helpful, and I had studied. I went to Upright Citizens Brigade for improv and sketch comedy and a few other things. And I think that was really helpful too with some of the comedy aspects of the show.
Now, Chris, you also did the national tour of this show.
Yeah.
So how long have you been with the show altogether?
Rehearsal started January 2019 for the Off-Broadway production, where I was rehearsing for Jonathan to cover Chris. And I was so fortunate to get cast as Chris in the second national tour, which began October 2019. So really, yeah, January 2019 is when my journey began. I was in the tour until COVID shut us down. Well, we all know when that happened. So what, about 3 years, just over, perhaps?
Wow. Have you done longer runs than this, or is this the
No,
longest run you've
this
had?
is the longest run.
Wow.
And
So,
long may it continue.
well, congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Every actor's dream. Congratulations. Being with the show for 3 years, what is your regular routine as far as the show and keeping yourself in great physical shape and being up to being able to be on point, a dancer's term, at all times?
I mean, it's a challenging show. It's a lot to do 8 times a week, especially having matinees and evening performances over the weekend. It's tough. I'm lucky to have a great gym right next door to the theater, because I'm somebody who wouldn't go there if I didn't literally fall out of the theater into the gym. So that's really helpful with the more physical bits. And it's kind of, getting stronger with the show has helped me expand on those physical moments too, which is really nice to feel. I'd say, honestly, the most challenging part is the mental aspect of it. Keeping the show fresh after such a long time. And I think what I'm really finding with that is it's kind of it's forgiving myself a little bit. I'm somebody who puts a lot of pressure on myself to do well, and to do well all the time. If things don't go right, or things don't go the way I intend them to, or I try something new and it doesn't quite
Or it goes wrong.
hit, or it goes wrong,
Yes.
then yeah, forgiving myself and kind of almost celebrating the fact that I tried. That's become more and more important for me, and something I wouldn't have imagined or expected to be so important to me when I started out on this show. So yeah, that's a big part of it too.
That's great. And Elliot, what about yourself? How long have you been with the show altogether?
Since September of 2019, so also almost.
Is this your longest run, or have you had longer
Yes,
runs?
definitely.
What's your preparation in terms of being able to be on point with this?
I also work out
Okay.
a lot.
Important. It's important.
And I think, and I keep my voice pretty warm pretty frequently, because you never know when you're going to go on in the show. And, I have a different, because I'm not always on like Chris is. I will watch the show probably once a week, maybe sometimes twice, just stand back at the monitors and just watch, just to keep myself, if there's any, just to keep abreast of any sort of tonal changes or any sort of rhythm changes, because it's a living thing. And so it will change. As an understudy, you kind of want to go in and help keep the rhythm in the same, help the boat stay the same course. So.
Well, the show has such a heightened sense of reality. How do you wind down after the show, Chris?
That's really hard to do. I find that really, really challenging. My character in particular, Chris Bean, is stressed out the entire 2 hours. He is somebody who wants this show to be going as well as it possibly can, which it isn't from the very first moment he walks on stage. Little things are just cutting away at him for 2 hours.
Yes.
So I leave the show stressed out. A lot of adrenaline and everything kind of running around my body. I find the train journey helps. I like to watch something on the train home. Ellie, calling back to Ellie's, she watches British shows. She's got me onto a show called Taskmaster recently, which I've been watching on the way home religiously. I have quite a long commute as well. I've been painting miniatures next to my desk. That is something that kind of just calms me down. And I have my little paintbrush and my magnifying glass, and I do that. Video games.
So many artists. I mean, Carol Channing was a good friend of mine, and a lot of people don't know this about her, but she became an artist when she was doing Hello Dolly, because she needed something to help her wind
Yeah.
down at the end of the show. And so she started doing these incredible art pieces.
Wow.
So you
Yeah.
got a
It's
whole,
helpful.
and Tony Bennett, you've got a whole new career ahead of you, Chris.
Yeah, perhaps. It's what I love about it is it's creative, but it is low stakes. I'm on my own. It is relaxing, but it's still creative, and it's kind of a really nice in the same world as doing the show, which is a whole creative thing. It's a nice little wind down, and it makes my eyes tired as well, which helps.
And Ellie?
Yeah, I do crosswords. I do a lot of crosswords, and I read because I'm a big nerd. So I read a lot.
No, I'm a huge reader, so that's not well. Maybe I'm a nerd too. I don't know, but I love that about both of you. And I want to talk about this other aspect. Chris, you have a family. Ellie, you both have a life beyond this. How do you balance the two? Either of you can go first.
With great difficulty.
Yeah, not well. Not well.
Yeah. It's a real tug of war, to be honest.
We have a tough schedule. We have a
Yeah,
very
we
It
do.
is a very tough
a
schedule.
very unique schedule in that we only have one night off a week,
Mhm.
and that night is a Tuesday, and that is inconvenient for everybody. No one
Yeah.
is happy about that, and so it's hard. I mean, my partner and I make a my husband. Oh my gosh, we're married. I forgot. My husband and I.
Recently.
Sorry, it's only been a month. My husband and I.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Not divorced yet. We we make a point to see each other. Last night was our date night. We went and saw comedy together and had dinner, and then we make a point to see each other in the mornings on Saturday and Sunday. But if you don't make the time, it really doesn't happen. I mean, Chris probably feels
Yeah.
the same way.
You've really got to carve it out. And the reason I say it's a tug of war is that our schedule's tough to begin with, but when things happen, somebody has an injury or they're out of the show for a little while, or we have new people in, or we have a character recast and we're in rehearsals, that adds to our time. And when I was an understudy and Ellie being an understudy, it's hard to have that additional time of those 2 rehearsals a week too. My wife works during the day when I'm free, and then I work during the evening.
Exactly.
So if you don't make a point of carving it out, then it doesn't happen. My wife's actually been out of town for 3 weeks now. She's visiting friends and family around the world. And kind of going back to that a question about winding down after a show, I hadn't realized how important a part she played in that. I've been really stressed out the last 3 weeks because I without realizing it, coming home to another person and somebody who has been relaxing that evening pulls me into her world, and without that, that's now that I'm recognizing it, it's helpful, but until I had.
So, getting back to the title, The Play That Goes Wrong, any particular moments that either of you want to share about a crazy moment that's actually gone wrong in the show that has taken all of you by surprise?
I wasn't there for the platform drop, but Chris, is that what you were going to say?
No, I was gonna give something else, but
See what you were going to say.
I was gonna say in our first year pre-COVID, before I went on tour, so sometime between February 2019 and September 2019, there's a whole bit with a missing dog in the show. And so there's in the pre-show, the understudies who play assistant stage managers, as well as Trevor and Annie, who are the 2 crew members in the show, they go out into the audience and look for a dog who is missing that we are supposed to have in Act 2. And we ask the audience, have you seen a dog? Do you know where that is? My character, Chris Bean, cannot hear about it. He's the director. He'd get very upset if he did. But the others are talking to the audience. And one night, when, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but when there is a need for the dog, a member of the audience got up, walked up the steps, walked onto the stage, and knelt down and put his arms like this and played the role of the dog. Until he did this, it was kind of terrifying. He didn't know what he was going to do, but he just knelt down and he was the dog. And until the guy playing Chris Bean at the time yelled at him and told him to get off the stage, and the management came down. And the best, and I really feel for the guy. He obviously thought this was the right thing to do. He spoke
was
with
sucked right in.
he just stepped right in, and he spoke with the ushers, and he watched the rest of the show. And I could see he was sat with his girlfriend, and she was stroking his arm the whole rest of the show. And if that person ever listens to this, I want you to know that you brought us all so much joy, and you may have been really embarrassed by that, but we're so grateful you did that. That was great and very funny. Please, no one else do that. But that one guy, thank you. It gives us a really good story.
Ellie, do you have a similar situation?
No, I actually just realized that we probably can't tell that story because I think it gives something away. So never mind.
Yeah, that's true.
Tell me later. And so, one of the things that I want to do with each of you as a wind down, so we can get to know you a little bit better. And everyone, I want to tell you, New World Stages, it's an open-ended run. So how long are you both contracted to be with the show? Are you able to tell us that?
Yeah, I don't see why. I'm currently scheduled until the end of January, but I as long as they want me, I'm not going anywhere.
Good for you. That's good. I hope to come back and see you in it. That's great. And Ellie?
Through April.
Great. Good for you. And, this is a great, and of course, the holidays and, being in New York and going to see shows. I mentioned that the night that I was there was a children's theater group that was there the night that I saw it. And they were just so into everything. And they were getting, surprising to me, every theater joke because there are so many of them. And they got every single one. And they were just like rolling in the aisles. Chris, do you remember the first time that you went to the theater as a kid?
I do. I grew up in Liverpool, and I saw a production of Blood Brothers at the Liverpool Empire. Blood Brothers is one of my favorite shows. I absolutely love it. Marilyn Monroe. Yeah. It's just, it was an incredible experience, not just because it was my first time seeing a show, but because the show is set in Liverpool, and it is still so relevant to the city and the people. There was just a very electric, I didn't recognize it in the moment. I just thought this is what every show was like. But obviously it was just, the audience was just so electric. And Willie Russell as a writer is so important to the city as well. Yes. So just having my first show be Blood Brothers, which talks about important issues that are still relevant in the city that it's about, was a really special first theater experience for me.
And Ellie, same question. The first time your first memory of going to the theater.
Yeah, my mom took me to like a probably illegal production of Annie. Like I doubt they got the rights, kind of thing, in a cafeteria. I think I was 4, and she turned to me and she said, "Do you want to do that?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And that was that.
Yeah.
Chris, when did you make up your mind that this was the path that you were going to be on?
I think it was around that same time. I think I was 9 or 10, and I was at school, and they were doing a school play, and I remember the audition list. I don't think anyone auditioned. I think it was just 3 columns that said, do you want a lot of lines, a medium amount of lines, or not many lines? So I signed up for not many lines and ended up playing Nurse Anesthetic, who was a very silly role. She was behind a screen with a shadow kind of thing when she was pulling things out of a body, and a surgeon. And that was about it. I didn't really do much. But I loved it, and I loved hearing people laugh. And then I think because I told you this.
I love it.
I think because of that, that's when my parents decided to bring me along to see Blood Brothers. They saw that I loved it and I was interested in it, and that's how it began for me, I think. So yeah, 8, 9, 10 years old. Yeah, that was it for me. I haven't wavered.
Good for you. Once it grabs you, it's
impossible.
Ellie, yourself, what was the moment for you?
Yeah, the company that did Annie, they had like a little training place, and it was literally in a garage in Texas.
Is that
And
where you're from?
I am from Texas. And they had like a little performing group called Garage Gang, and you wore these red blazers with black sequins on it, and you performed in malls. And they put me in it, I think, just because I was like a really cute little blonde girl. And they made me the Partridge in the Pear Tree when we did the Christmas song, when we did the Deck the Halls. And I found a duck bill and I brought it to the show that we were doing, and no one knew that I was doing this. I was like 5 or 6, and I put it on, and it just like killed, Everyone just like thought it was so funny. And this is like an infamous story in my family. We were in the car on the way home, and I'm sitting in the back seat going, "Who stole it? Who stole it? Who stole the show?" And it's me, and I'm a monster and continue to be a monster.
And you're still
and nothing
stealing
has
it.
changed.
And you're still
Exactly.
stealing it. So I've got 3 random questions that I'm going to ask each of you. I haven't even looked at the questions, and I'm going to start with you, Ellie. And it says, identify a cause of conflict in the show and take steps to resolve it. The show is all about all these conflicts. What is the hardest thing that you've had to deal with doing this show, and how did you get through it?
I think the hardest thing is actually making the character my own, and not trying to be an exact carbon copy of whoever it is that I'm covering. Like I said, you want to stay in the lane, but you don't want to go too far off. But like it also has to be your own. And so I think just honestly, time has made that.
It sounds to me from both of you, and if this is the case, kudos to the writers, the director, the entire Mischief company, that they allow you to bring what you bring to the table.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
and that's not always the case. So that's incredible.
Correct. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah.
Great. Chris, it says commit to solving a problem that's been bugging you for a while. Give yourself a timeline. Is there something that's been bugging you for a while that you just want to put it out there right now?
In the show,
In
or
the show or in life? This is your moment.
oh goodness,
You
let me
can't say
think.
in-laws, Chris.
He can if he wants.
I
Yes.
could, but I wouldn't.
Okay, good.
Exactly.
Yep. Oh goodness. A problem that's been bugging me for a while. I've struggled. I suppose I played the role on the tour, which is playing the role in front of much bigger houses, and I think I have, and also pre-COVID. So a year and a half of not doing it, and thinking back to that time I played Chris Bean on the tour, and then coming back and playing Jonathan for a long time. I know, and I'm not saying that I've sucked, but I know that I feel that I've had a hard time adjusting from 3,500 to 350, adjusting from a rehearsal process recently and discoveries recently and work recently to work that has now been a year and a half later on the role, and kind of I had an interesting process. I found out that I would be playing Chris, and then the guy playing Chris at the time, he had a COVID out. I think I'm allowed to say that without saying his name. So I was thrust into it immediately without the time to prep, really. So I've been kind of finding it in performance. And I think I'm at the end of that timeline. I'm going to give myself another month of grace to... and again, I'm not saying I've sucked or the show sucks or anything. I'm just saying I know I can bring more, which actually... I don't know if I want to give a timeline for that because I always want to feel like I can bring more. But those are the specific issues that I'm like, yeah, I want to work on that. And I want to keep working on that. And I want to, I feel like in certain degrees that's holding me back. And that's something I need to work through.
And this last question is going to be for both of you. And I'm going to start with you, Ellie. And it says, how did you meet your best friend? So who do you consider your best friend I'm going to ask, who do you consider your best friend in the industry?
Am
I putting
It's
you on
right.
the spot?
You don't have to say me.
No. My besides my husband, okay, whatever. We're best friends. Okay, cool. Actually, my friend Nicole Capitasto and I did college theater together, and she interned. She was like the stage manager for some, BS college theater program that I was doing, college show that I was doing, and she's now a fancy publicist, PR rep for Matt Ross, and I'm here, and we live together, and it was wonderful. And it's nice to have a friend that's not that's into business but not an actor.
I totally agree with that. And what about yourself, Chris?
It's hard to look past my good friend Matt Harrington. He originated the role Off-Broadway that I play now. I don't think you'll mind me saying this. I was terrified to be an understudy. I'd never done it before. I came into this show understudying a very daunting role. Chris is a very daunting role with a lot of elements to him, and Matt played him brilliantly. Matt's a stressor. He stresses out, kind of like me, actually. But again, Ellie, you don't think you'll mind me saying this, right?
No.
No. And God, I would worry that he was going to call out, and I'd have to go on to the point where, at least to begin with, I'd be like, "Do you want to get something to eat between shows, and we'll just hang out and relax?" And that kind of became that's what begun our friendship. I think it came from a place of, we'll go and have some food between shows, and you'll be fine tonight, right? I think that's where our friendship began. And then just spending all this extra time together, we became really close. And then when I got to play the role, we talk about it. We enjoy it together, and we think about it. And he's now moved to Leopoldstadt, which is really cool. And I was his guest at opening, which was really nice. That's just to show how far from not knowing each other at the start of this show to where we are now. He and I have become really close friends.
That's wonderful. I want to thank you both for being here today. I'm going to say my closing remarks for today, and then Ellie, I'm going to let you speak first because I know you've got to get out of here, and I'm watching the clock. And then, Chris, I'll let you have the final word today. It can be about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message that you want to leave everyone with today. This is your chance to do so. I want to thank Jackie Green for making this happen today. My friend Sarah Wolfson, who saw the show originally in London and said, "You've got to do a show on this." I had such a blast at the theater. I want to tell everybody, if you get a chance to go see The Play That Goes Wrong, by all means, it's at New World Stages in New York. I love that space. I love the theater. I'm going to say, from the moment you get there, the ushers, the ticket takers, every person that works there, I've never had a bad experience with any show that I've ever gone. It's almost as if they're welcoming you back into the fold every time you go to see a show. And they set the tone from the moment you walk into the theater. So across the board, I shout out to everybody. Every day I pull a word for the day. And the word that I pulled today was inclusion. And I've been thinking a lot about the stress that we've all gone through over the last few weeks leading up to yesterday and the election. And we're still sitting waiting for certain things to come in. As I said at the beginning, certain people that I voted for got in, certain people didn't. But what I love is that this nation came together and voted. And everybody went out and did what they did. And it doesn't matter to me who they voted for at this point. The fact is that they had the opportunity to do so. And I think that with everything, how lucky we are that we can go to the theater, that we can choose to see what we want to see, and that we do have those freedoms in this country. I'm all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. Ellie and Chris, I want you to know that you are welcome here anytime. Anytime you have something that you feel that you want to talk about, by all means, call me, come back. I've had so much fun seeing you, Chris, in the show. Ellie, I can't wait to see you in the show. So it's just such a fun show. I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your list. Everybody, I've been sharing this, and I'm saying at the end of my shows, I'm leaving Facebook on December 1st, which is a big move for me because I've been on Facebook for 14 years. But I am writing a new show and I want to put my focus on that. I'm moving in that direction. And there's a great commercial running right now on TV that says, separate yourself from the herd. And I'm separating myself from the herd and I'm focusing on what I need to do to move forward. But I still will continue to celebrate artists such as Chris and Ellie and what they bring to the table. And I want to say, I have a dear friend, as you all know, Sean Moniger, who says we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. You never know what someone else is going through right now. But I always say, if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. And on that note, I'm going to leave the screen and it's all yours, Ellie. And don't worry about how to leave. I know how to end for both of you. So thank you for being here and have a wonderful afternoon. It's all yours. Thank you.
Thanks. Just thanks for having us today. This was wonderful. What a unique and warm interview. Right, Chris?
Yeah, I'd second that as well. It's I really love the conversational aspect of what we've done today. It was really nice just to kind of to not feel any pressure or anything like that, just to have a chat and enjoy talking about our show, which honestly we're all so passionate about in the Play That Goes Wrong. You mentioned, Richard, the staff and everyone at New World Stages. To a person, they are lovely and so accommodating and, you know, so welcoming to audiences, but also to us as cast members and our crew and everyone in the show. There are elements in the show where before the show, some of the cast might go out and in character and have to do a few things. We lightly touched on that. You know what? the staff at New World Stages love to improv with us and do that back too, which is really cool. And they're just lovely people. So thank you for mentioning that. One thing you mentioned that I'd just love to really kind of expand on very, very quickly is how fantastic Mischief is at letting people bring themselves to their performances and what they want to bring. You're not told as an understudy that you have to copy what the person in the role is doing. You really get to express yourself to an extent as a character with your characterization. And I love that. They're such, to use your word from the day, an inclusive company. They're lovely people. They love to use people over and over again. I see that in the West End. I see a lot of the same names from The Play That Goes Wrong, in Bank Robbery, and in Magic Goes Wrong, etc. And they really kind of support what you want to bring and what you can bring yourself. So I'm really grateful to Mischief for that as well. And grateful to you for giving us the opportunity to talk about our show as well. So thank you, Richard.